welcome in. It's the John Cast Podcast. It is episode number 60. Welcome into the podcast. Really excited about this one today. Podcast, as always, is brought to you by Ian's Pizza in Madison, with 3 locations in Madison, 1 in Milwaukee, 1 in Seattle, and 1 in Denver. We are currently working on our next promotion. We've got a couple of ideas floating around that I really think podcast listeners are going to enjoy. So check out Ian's Pizza if you're in Madison or Milwaukee, Seattle, or Denver, or just come to Madison and have a macaroni and cheese slice of pizza. It's delicious. So Ian's Pizza, thank you to them. JohnCastPodcast.com. Go subscribe, newsletter, rate and review, all the good stuff. But let's get to today's episode because I'm really excited. The volleyball coach at the University of Wisconsin, the national champion winning volleyball coach at the University of Wisconsin, Kelly Sheffield, joins me along with Badgers beat writer Dennis Punzel. Guys, it's like Point Wisconsin again, version 2.0 or something like that. How's everybody doing today? Kelly, we'll start with you.
We're doing great. Let's go. Great to see you guys.
Dennis, what's going on?
Well, we're getting there. Just nostalgic.
Yes, it really is. If you notice some issues with Dennis's audio, it's because Dennis screwed up his microphone earlier. So I'm just kidding, Dennis.
I did that on purpose.
Dennis did nothing. It's just technology.
We're going MacGyver on everyone right now, aren't we?
What's that?
MacGyver. We're getting out the duct tape and all kinds of things.
We were trying a whole bunch of stuff. For a second, I felt like an IT person, but then it didn't work. All right, guys. So a lot of off-season news happening. Dennis, I want to talk about the book that we had mentioned in the last podcast because I know you've got an update with that. But Kelly, I wanted to start with the news that I saw recently it's got a lot of Badger fans talking, and that's the September 16th match at the Kohl Center against Florida. Badger volleyball is moving from the Fieldhouse for one match, September 16th. This is something that I've been just saying as a fan, like, why can't we play at the Kohl Center? Can we do one at the Kohl Center? Like women's hockey does one at the Kohl. Like, why can't we do one at the Kohl Center? Imagine how cool that would be to fill that arena up. And that's the plan right now. Can you tell me the background, the story? What's the story there behind Wisconsin volleyball playing at the Kohl on September 16th?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think when we first got here, maybe it was 13 or 14 or something. I think I was asked if I had any interest in going there. I didn't personally. I wanted to I love the field house that we play in. And so let's try to continue to put upgrades in there. Let's try to bring that up to where it's capable of being. And, and after this past season, I was asked again, do we want to go there and play? I wasn't interested, but, more thinking about it. I mean, we've been selling out here for, 7-8 years, and there's just people that can't come in there and watch. And so that's been kind of a philosophy. As you saw this past spring, we're going around the state and trying to play at some different places. Maybe some people that aren't able to make the drive, they don't have the time. Maybe that they're not able to get tickets. We wanted to kind of take the show on the road a little bit, I guess, if you will. And, the Kohl Center allows us to get more people to watch. I think, we're excited about it.
Yeah, it's how did that come about? Did you have conversations with somebody? Like how did you find that date in particular too to play against Florida, and why not a Big Ten school, or was it always going to be a non-conference if that were to ever happen?
Let's see. I think the last person that came to me and said something was Katie Smith, and my boss, and right after the season said that I wasn't interested. And then, I don't know, probably about a month or so later, started thinking, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. If we're going to do it the right way, we've got to promote it. We've got to give them a great experience. It's, there's pros and cons of doing that. I mean, you're getting, the possibility of 17,000 fans in the building, but, the fans are further away from the action. It's the volleyball court is smaller than a basketball court. So, we want to make sure that it's done the right way. Florida, you wanted to do it against a big time opponent, something that people would be excited to watch. Weren't interested in doing something new for the first time in a conference match,
right?
So it's didn't really want to do it the first match out of the gates when we're dropping a banner. So there really weren't a whole lot left, but talked to Mary at Florida. She's excited about it. We're excited about it. Let's go.
Yeah. How important is it, do you think, to showcase the sport? Because my guess is, I mean, I think you have an excellent shot of beating that regular season attendance record of, I think, just over 14,000.
Yeah.
So how important do you think it is for the sport, for the conference, to showcase volleyball in front of that many people and say, listen, this can happen?
I think it's important that we continue to, how do we continue to give our players and our fans experiences that they enjoy, that they remember? I certainly want to be thinking about that. How do we stretch the game? How do we grow the game? How do we get more people maybe to see what kind of what this sport is about? I think we need to continue to think outside the box, and maybe we leave there that night and say, "Man, this is a horrible idea." Well, but on the other hand, maybe we sit there and there's 20 people in the stands that have never seen a match live in person before, and they leave there and they're inspired and they want to watch some more. Mm-hmm. I think we continue to try to find ways to get on TV. I think it's not like this will be a match that we'll be able to get covered as we should. It's been a while since those attendance records regular season have been pushed. Most of us are playing in a little bit smaller arenas, and I think we just set the attendance record for the tournament. Let's go ahead and try to find a way to set up for the regular season as well.
I think, and you have no control over this, but how cool it would be, I think, if then men's basketball played a game at the field house in a non-conference, and you guys got the Kohl Center for a non-conference. I think things like that are really fun for Badger fans because it's something new. It's something different than what they're used to. So I'm all about this idea. I think it's fantastic. And I know we have no idea if it went well, because we'll find out on September 16th, but could you see this being a yearly tradition?
Oh, I don't know. Ask me after that. I that's certainly not something that we're going into this thinking that way. But it's I thought it was cool that Michigan State basketball a few years ago tried to play a game on an aircraft carrier. I mean, that's just sweet. I don't think it didn't. They weren't able to pull it off, but the idea of that was pretty cool. There's some volleyball teams that have been able to play in the Pentagon, and I think that's cool. There's hockey games that are playing inside of football stadiums, and that's just thinking outside the box, and tapping. Yeah, it's we'll see how this goes, and maybe this is a one-shot deal. Maybe it's something we try to do that later on down the road.
Now that I think about it, maybe once every year it could get. Maybe once every other year. I don't know. It's sometimes. I also wanted Badger hockey to play at Camp Randall once a year too. So I don't know, because I went to one of those and that was cold, but it was a lot of fun and something different. So the one of the other things with the program is, well, I'm curious, what is the seating at the field house? How's that renovation number one going? That you've seen the progress over that, and will we have different seating at the field house coming up?
John, it is like a war zone, and it has been in there for months. It is crazy how many workers are in there. I mean, there's stuff everywhere. There's dust everywhere. It's unbelievable. But one of the cool things, there's going to be new seating. We've got premium seating, chair backs, which is something we've heard from a lot of our fans. We do these year-end surveys, and since I've been here, that's been something that people have asked for. And so if you get chair back seating, obviously you're going to lose some seats. And there's give and take, right? I mean, there's just no way possible to make everybody happy. But it's an option. People are going to have that option to be able to sit there. That'll be the section right behind the scores table, right behind the benches, all of that. So we'll lose some seating along the way. We've had to add some ADA seating. That's something that we've known we've had to do for a few years, and it is really, really important. And so when you're adding a bunch of that, we've got a big section of it right above the premium seating, so you're going to lose even some more seating because of that. It's the part in the south end that goes in and out of the Kohl Center Camp Randall.
Right.
Will be another area for premium seating. That will be a place where people can grab food and drinks. And we're certainly excited about that. And then air conditioning. We added some air conditioning a few years ago, but it didn't bring down the temperature of the entire place. I'm told we're going to be able to get the field house down to 70 degrees if we want to, which is going to be obviously for somebody that's way up there in the top. This is a game changer, but that's a big reason why there's so many people in there, is that the piping that's going all the way through there is just is incredible. But I'm obviously we're going to lose a little bit of seats. That's a little bit of a bummer. The cost to get in, they're going to be raising that, and you're a little bit nervous that maybe you'd be pricing people out, or they decide to take their dollars and do something else. One of the great things has been the value of coming to a match, and the price is going to go up in some cases considerably, but it's probably to be expected when you're thinking over the last 9 years. A new floor, a new video board, new locker rooms, new lighting, new sound system, air conditioning, seating. They got all the bees and the wasps that used to fly over there. Most of those out of there. It's the concourse area, the windows, the outside of the building. It has been an incredible investment that has gone in, and that's one of the things I'm excited about, is that when people are asking for things, that there's been a willingness to of the administration to go and make some of these really big time changes. And there's going to be a little bit of a cost to that, and we really hope that people stay with it.
A couple of questions, and then I got one for you, Dennis. You mentioned the 70 degrees. You're going to be able to, that's next year. You're going to be able to get that place to 70 degrees, is what you're telling me? Okay. I'll let Pete know not to bring the fans, the little tiny fans he brings up. We may not need those anymore. And you also mentioned the concourses. Just a fan question, and the fan in me asking this question. Will the trophy be on display around the concourse? I don't know how you would do that or where it would go, but are there plans to kind of showcase some of those awards?
All right. So what we've decided to, because it's still a war zone right down there. I was walking on my way up to the office today, and it is so much stuff in there. I mean, it's just insane. The concourse, how we want to do it, is there's just not enough time to do that. And so it'll probably look somewhat similar to what we have had. There'll be a place, probably a table for the trophies. I would think after our season is over, that is a plan of building some trophy cases and really updating the concourse in a much better way than it is right now. We're hoping that there's been so much like storage in the concourse, and we're trying to get everything out of the concourse that has been there for decades, that have just kind of accumulated. And hopefully fans will have a little bit more elbow room. It'll be visually more appealing, obviously, as well, safer. Get all that stuff out of there, and then really take that extra space and probably do some things that we'll be able to showcase the trophies and the history, and be able to do some fan interaction stuff in there.
It's fantastic. I want to ask more about the product, the team that we'll see out on the court in 2022. But Dennis Punzel, Badgers beat writer for the University of Wisconsin volleyball team, is on the podcast as well. Now we got a little connection issue, Dennis, but that's all good. And Dennis, you have some news of your own, because last time you were on this podcast, you talked about the book you're going to be writing about the 2021 Badger season. And congratulations, that's all done. You wrote a book. That's so cool. So let me ask you, how does How does it feel writing your first book?
Like something I never thought I would do. I had no real ambitions to do one, and the only ambition I had, I kind of put away a couple of years ago, and was told to be thankful you gave up on that idea. And then somehow it came around again, and it felt really, really good. Typing the last sentence of the book was really emotional.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So as you're doing this process, what was like the hardest thing about writing a book on the 2021 season? And what was something that perhaps was a little easier than you thought it would be?
The hardest part was not putting it off. I knew it was a very short time frame, because to make this work, we had to get the book out before the season starts. We don't have a release date yet. And the book is still in the process of being put together by the publisher right now. I get texts and emails every day on the progress of that. But as it got closer to my deadline, I said, I should have probably started doing this a little, like in February. I should have been doing more, but I was always going to do that tomorrow. And but I work better on deadlines, so we pushed it pretty hard. And most people that I talk to who've done books say, you're going to do it in 2 months, ridiculous. That was about the turnaround time, was a couple months. And the other concept, I'm used to working in 1,000-word increments. A newspaper story, which is maybe 750 to maybe occasionally I sneak it over 1,000. And to write a book of 60,000 words, I didn't know what that meant. That was a foreign language to me. And yet, once I broke it down, the chapters kind of fell into place, and it was easier that way. I felt like I was writing 15 books of, whatever, how many words, about 2,000. I think the longest one is maybe 7,000 words.
Dennis, how many, you had over a decade of articles and interviews that you're kind of going back on, but how many people do you think that you interviewed or talked to for this book?
I should go back and count. I'm guessing there's over 20. And I said one of the most fun parts for me, because the book is really kind of two parts. One is Kelly's story, his path from Muncie to Madison and everywhere in between, and talking to people who played for him at Albany. I talked to the guy who hired him at Albany. Talking to former Dayton players. I talked probably 2 or 3 or 4 from each of those schools. The women from Albany I talked to one who was a freshman the year Kelly came in, and won four matches that year, and 14 of the 17 players quit. And she was one of the 3 that stayed on, and her senior year played in the NCAA tournament. That was fun. It's fun. That was the part I enjoyed, because it's a part that I knew less about. The Wisconsin part, it was, how do I tell a story that I've already been telling incrementally for 9 years, and make it sound fresh.
So was there anything that you learned? I mean, you just talked about some of the non-Badger storylines, like with Kelly's career, but was there anything else that you learned that you didn't know in the process of writing this?
Well, there were good stories from the transition time here. His first season, the things that went on, and it was a big turnaround for a team that hadn't been in the tournament for 5 years, and things were going to be done differently. That was interesting. Who else did I talk to? I talked to the going back a ways, the woman who was the coach at Bowling Green at the time, and Kelly had been a club coach there and living the good life of club coaching and bartending and going around during the summers and working at camps. And after a couple of years, and this woman, Denise Van de Wally, really liked him and just kind of sat down to Kelly, what are you doing with your life? And it was kind of, you ever thought about getting into college coaching? And that's kind of what set him on the path. And I said, everybody in life has some turning point that kind of sets you in the direction that you end up being. And that seemed like that conversation was one of those inflection points that was really fun to hear discussed.
Kelly, what is that like to be able to, when this book is released, to be able to have basically a record, a background of your coaching history, and then of the 2021 season? I mean, have you thought about how unique of an opportunity it is to have this just like written down? Because not everybody gets a book about the season.
It was totally outside of both of our comfort zones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's writing a book is, I mean, it is crazy what Dennis has had to go through. And I remember him and I talking about having numerous conversations. It was a little bit scary going in. I think he would say that, and and certainly, there's stuff about. I told Dennis, hey, take it whatever directions that you want to, and it certainly would be a lot more comfortable if there was none of it on me, that it was totally geared towards the players and current and past, and in telling their story. I understand why it went the direction that it did, but and there was a few things in there that that I'd rather not. I wish weren't in there, but but I think you try to be truthful and tell the whole picture. But it's I enjoy doing things like this, like what we're talking, and talking to you and talking to, promoting our program and talking about our kids. But at the end of the day, it's about them, and it's not a place of comfort when you're reading pages about yourself. I can promise you that.
Interesting. Another book question, Dennis, real quick. Did you reach out? Who did you reach out to about this? Because I'm sure because like you said, this is the first time you've ever done anything like this, 60,000 words. Who did you reach out to, and what were some of the tips that they gave you about writing this?
Well, yeah, I've talked to one of my mentors, Rob Zaleski, was the sports editor at the Cap Times, who brought me to town. He was also my first sports editor in Green Bay back in 1975, and he hired me at the Cap Times, and he's written a few books, and he's not a volleyball person at all, doesn't know much at all about the sport, but whenever we talk, he'd say, that Kelly Sheffield, that story's a book. That story's got to be told. And that kind of pushed me in that direction to make that part of the book. I talked to Lee Feinswag from Volleyball Mag. We know he was a guest every year on the podcast, which, by the way, I know I showed you the cover. Coincidentally, the name of the book, or the main title, is Point, Wisconsin, which has a familiar ring.
Yes.
But talking to Lee, the first time, this was back in 2019, because he'd written several books, I asked him for advice, and his best advice was, don't do it. and I took that advice for 3 years. And then I finally went away from it. The hardest part for me, the biggest discomfort was, how do you find a publisher? I had no clue. And who out there in the publishing world is going to publish a book by somebody they never heard of about a sport they probably don't pay much attention to. And I didn't know how to go about it. I had no connections. I talked to a few people, Tom Hodricourt, who has done several books, and he recommended this KCI Sports Publishing in Stevens Point. I talked to Diane Nordstrom, our friend, and she went through people in the department and who'd had a couple books done through KCI Sports. So I thought, I'd heard of them. I knew of them. I used to work in Stevens Point years and years ago. And I said, that sounds like the winner, but I was afraid to contact them because if they said no, I said, well, then who? So I decided I was afraid to get no for an answer. So I didn't ask the question. And after a couple weeks of dawdling, I just one day said, all right, I'm going to send the guy an email, Peter Clark. I had his name, I had his email, and sent him a little synopsis of what I was working on and wondering if he would have any interest in doing a book, and thinking I'd hear back hopefully in a week or two. Well, 5 minutes later, I get an email that he is very excited about that idea and would love to talk to me. And 5 minutes after that, we're on the phone.
Wow.
And boom, we're talking. The conversation's going on, and it was like, oh, there'd have to be a short turnaround. That would be the trickiest part. And as the conversation went on, he mentioned a guy, Phil Hebner. I don't even remember what the context was. And I said, oh yeah, I remember Phil Hebner. He played point guard for Spash. And the other guard was Tom Clark. He said, well, Tom, that's my brother. And so I'd written about his brother, and then he tells me, well, I've got a scrapbook right here that my mother kept of articles you did on my brother back in 1970 something.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, okay, so I think this is meant to happen.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
And it's been a good relationship, and he's been real helpful pushing this through. He came down, and we met with Kelly one day for a while and talked about stuff. And right now we're assembling photos kind of 100 miles apart, which is always a challenge, but he's putting things together right now. So, but that was the hardest. That was the part I was most uncomfortable with, was publishing, and it's turned out to be one of the easier parts of it from my end.
That's so cool. Just send the email, Dennis. 5 minutes later, you get a response. 10 minutes later, you're talking.
Yeah. What's the problem, people? Just put out a book.
Yeah. And by the way, I'd like to do a podcast with you later on when the book is published. I want to take a read and I want to talk about the book with you. So I think that would be a really fun podcast if you're interested in doing that sometime later this summer.
As always, because you mentioned the hard parts, and that the hard part of this book is still ahead, and that's going to be the promotion stuff. Yeah. Because as you know, this is probably not my favorite part of things, but yeah. Well, we get out there. We know to get out of our comfort zones.
Exactly. You did with the book. All right, Kelly, to wrap up this podcast, I did want to talk a little bit about the players that we'll see on the court in 2022, because we haven't really had a chance to talk about some of the new faces that'll be on the Badgers roster this upcoming season. I don't think we've talked about Caroline Crawford. But what about some of these new faces like her, like Gabby McCaw, like Sarah Franklin, who we haven't had a chance to speak of, a Michigan State transfer? What can you tell us about some of these new faces on the roster in 2022?
Well, anybody that saw us in the spring saw a little bit about Caroline Crawford. We call her CC. Great competitor. The kid wants to be really, really good. But she's locked in all the time. I mean, every moment of practice, and she's open to learning. A fierce competitor. Middle, and we're excited about her. There's a lot of strength, a lot of toughness that comes from her. Gabby transferred. We were just able to. She's been here for a few weeks. transferred from Boston College. We got to know her back in high school. She came here on a visit a couple times. Originally committed to Southern Cal. With the coaching change, she went to Boston College, played out there for the last 3 years. Very experienced. Will probably be one of the there won't be too many people on our roster that has played in more matches than what Gabby has. Sarah Franklin, transferred from Michigan State, all Big Ten player outside. And, I talked to, our strength coach gave me a call the other day and said, I'm going to tell you what, this kid is on a mission. Said she has maybe the biggest presence on our team in the weight room. Certainly one of the top ones. I got a text message from one of our players the other day. He said, man, she is, every time she is around, whether it's out on the sand courts or in the gym when they're playing, their teammates are pretty fired up to getting or seeing what they're seeing. So we're excited about Sarah. She's got 3 more seasons for us. Ella Roble is starting nationals, her AU nationals this week down in Florida. They'll probably be one of the favorites to win a national championship. She is certainly talking with her before she goes down there. She's possessed, right now to be able to do that. She'll be here, she'll land Sunday after nationals. And I think Sunday morning she'll be here Sunday afternoon. And joining the team. So next week or this weekend, she'll be here. Excited about her. Golce Gudikin is from Turkey, a Libero from Turkey. She's preparing for the European Championships that also Yuli Orzel will be playing in July. I'll be flying over there to Italy to watch both of them play. Golce will be here probably about 24 hours before we start our team meetings in preseason. So we've got quite a few new kids. Looking at my board to make sure I'm not forgetting anybody, but I think I touched on all the newbies.
Okay. I would ask a little bit about how these pieces fit together on the court, but we know that that's a process that is going to be ongoing, maybe up until the final match of the year as well, with little wrinkles in the lineup. So I won't ask you about that, but a ton of new talent coming in for Badger fans to keep an eye on in 2022. Guys, that's the podcast, Point Wisconsin, basically. So I appreciate both your guys' time. Dennis, once again, congratulations on writing the book. We'll talk about it again later. And Kelly, we'll hook up again this summer with us 3 here, and we'll do another one of these.
Sounds great.
Cool.
Very
Thanks,
good.
fellas. All right. There you go. That is Dennis Punzel, Kelly Sheffield on this podcast. I'd like to thank Ian's Pizza in Madison, once again, with 3 locations in Madison, 1 in Milwaukee. Thank you to Ian's Pizza for being a sponsor of this podcast. Also, check out johncastpodcast.com. Now, you can sign up for my newsletter. I'm not going to spam you. I'm just going to give you cool stuff that I'm doing on the podcast. So whether that's a contest or a promotion or whatever, a cool guest we have coming up on the podcast, that's what you're going to get out of my newsletter. And always a rate or review on your podcast platform that you're listening to this on always helps the podcast, helps support this podcast. So thank you for continuing to do that. It takes seconds to leave a rate or a review. All right. Thanks for listening to this edition of the John Cast Podcast. Goodbye. See ya.